Welcome to Making a Band 101, my comprehensive guide to getting your musical project from your head and your plans to on the stage and in your community. This podcast is designed for individuals and groups that are either new to musical performance or re-energizing their project. All 7 episodes are chock full of industry tips, tricks, and secrets, and will give you the knowledge and the confidence to create success in a robust musical portfolio. I'm Drew Jones, and I can't wait to get you in my head and give you all the essential knowledge I've obtained in a 20-plus year music career with thousands of onstage hours in a performance portfolio. Without further ado, let's get into it. It was Grey Cup weekend in Calgary, Alberta, 2019. And we're about to be the first band ever to play the Cowboys Casino downtown. We've been brought in by a good friend who is hosting a charity event that was also parallel to the whole Grey Cup celebration, where certain football players and personalities, Canadian personalities from Big Brother Canada and other noted, celebrity moments were there. And of course they'd picked a charity. They threw our band in the corner, we brought our full sound rig, set up our whole production, and got ripping. It was amazing. The top management of the place, all the patrons, everyone invited and attending was like, you guys killed it. What they didn't know is that for at least one of our songs, like the single that we play, it was a song that we were still writing on the stage. Yeah, believe it or not, we hit that stage, played one of our main songs, not really knowing where it was going. And that spontaneity in songwriting is something that we had been discovering for a few months up until that point. It's a crazy feeling to know that you're sitting on an amazing chord progression and a great melody, a good hook, but you don't even know what the lyrics are. And you're just spitballing, kind of like freestyling like a rapper, I suppose, where you're on that stage just trying to figure out where's the song supposed to go? How's it supposed to vibe? Where does it crescendo? Where do the breaks happen? Is there going to be a bridge? What does the bridge sound like? And that's how we were writing that song. That song turned into Voices, which was our single for 2021 when we finally recorded it and put it out to the world to listen to. What we had been discovering up to that point is really how to write music for a crowd. How to take what we love about music, what we wanted it to sound like, and capture, the essence of who we are in our music, but really care about the crowd reaction. Really care that, hey, as a band playing publicly a lot, not just releasing music to the airwaves that hopefully subjective, like-minded people alike, but knowing we're going to be hitting a mass market through big events, through big stages. We want as many people as possible to like our music. It's not a sellout moment per se. It's more like a how do we cultivate this freedom of expression that people will love. A lot of it comes through the attitude. A lot of it comes through maybe more generic sounds that we're producing in our instruments or whatever, but it really comes down to, do we care that the crowd is going to react to this positively? And in time, we started to write our music that way and really, through the creativity and spontaneity, watch the crowd and learn how to watch the crowd and learn how to move our music in a direction to keep that crowd going and tracking with us in a way that we hold their attention and we hold their interest through basically all the songs we write, through an entire set. One of the ways we started to do this quite successfully is we started to create archetypes of songs while we were writing. I think this is a concept that most artists wouldn't be familiar with. So our band essentially has 5 archetypes of songs. The archetypes fundamentally start with a beat. So the drum and the bass are kind of doing the same thing in 1/5 of every song we ever play, because again, we have 5 archetypes. And really a lot of this derived from my style of songwriting, because as the key songwriter for the band, I was bringing, a skeleton of a song to the group, and then we flesh it out, and we started to learn that I kind of wrote in 5 styles that really worked within the context of the crowds we were playing and the way that I like to write music. And these 5 styles were essentially like 5 different forms of party songs. So even now when we go into the rehearsal space, I can say, hey, this song is going to be like that one. And we're so familiar with these archetypes that we fall in line with those rhythms and those movements, even though the song is different. Obviously, we want to change the tempo a bit. Obviously, chord progressions are different. Obviously, melody lines are different. So the songs aren't immediately familiar to what is known in our other music, but That being said, it makes it very easy for us to understand what the song should be and then how to learn it as a group. The reason I tell you the story about Voices at the start of this podcast is because Voices was one of those first archetypes. It was one of those first hyper creative moments on stage where I had such a wonderful hook, and the melody and the vibe of the song was landing as like a chorus that we would sing, you know, or that I would share with friends, and we'd kind of throw it into parts of other songs that were similarly. And I'd said to the band, hey, let's keep this one open. Let's try to write this spontaneously on stage. And it's like a pretty serious, nerve-wracking moment to hit the stage, and you're already capturing an audience, you know, either performing or for like an event where you're playing to a big room. Lots of people like the casino, you know, Cowboys Casino were playing in the story. That was a legit true story. But, you know, it was in those moments that the pressure of the performance, the creativity with the band, I'm kind of freestyling as I'm singing, and we started to really find the right lyrics, the right vibe, the right mood, the right tempo. And over the span of about 20 shows, we locked in what that song became in the studio. And what was really encouraging was by the time we hit the studio, our producer Josh, who's pretty legit, was happy with it the way it was. He's quick to modify lyrics and modify you know, the feel or the portions of certain parts of songs. Like, he's a true producer, but actually he liked Voices the way it was, and we kept it the way it was, and that thing was completely written on the stage. And that's because of the archetype that it fell into. And from there we grew into about 5 kind of writing styles, or 5 archetypes for songs. So this is the first lesson or idea I wanted to present in this podcast, is that you should, as a group or as an individual, start to understand what your sort of archetypal way of writing is. Again, your group might bring a key songwriter to bring a skeleton to the band, and then you all flesh it out together and it changes and evolves. Maybe you write in community where you're riffing and jamming and you're vibing and feeling together. I've been involved in all these processes. One of my favorite formats for writing was a good buddy, another producer named Josh, who we would sit down and just start together, you know, looking at my melodies, looking at my chord structures, looking at lyrics, and we would like right in the moment really vibe. It was quite intimate, very creative, and we were in this swirl together, and we would just kind of write. But regardless of how I love to do it or how we did it, it was a matter of like, okay, we kind of form these moments in songs the same way. I like these 5 or 6 drum beats. I like that style. That thing seems to fit with the attitude of the band. That seems to fit when we play with the crowd. We're starting to create an identity in our music. We're starting to create a sound. So those really are those archetypes. They will manifest in your group the longer you start to do it. You can hear it in all popular music, right? This is the sound a band is going for. And if you really were to dissect a popular artist, you would notice that these rhythms keep coming back every 3rd or 4th song, right? So these are these archetypes, and these are how, when you learn what your sound is and when you identify what these archetypes are, you can bring that product in future songs you write. You can find security and safety in gigging and performing these ways. It's not like a foreign concept to hit a new song in a certain drum beat, in a certain frame of reference. You know, constructing your bridges in certain ways, constructing those breaks in certain ways. It is kind of like your own personalized formula that you're creating for your band. Believe it or not, having archetypal style songs really reduces the need to practice, in my opinion. We have actually brought brand new songs to actually large stages for the first time and done it really well, because I'll have a great skeleton of a tune that's similar to like 2 or 3 of our other songs that I've written. I introduce the song to the boys like by a video on our shared message, and then we can talk about it, you know, in the green room before the set. I can kind of trial it for the boys. I'm like, this is literally in this archetype. Here's how we're going to hit this. The first break is guitar. The second break is saxophone. I don't have the bridge figured out yet, but that doesn't matter. We'll spit something out and see how that goes. And so we can like default to these archetypes and bring new songs right to the stage. Sounds crazy, sounds jammy. It's not. It really, really, really works. The band immediately knows what I'm talking about because the song is very similar to a different song that we have. Tempo might be a bit different. Style or flair might be a little different. The boys kind of have fun with that in the moment. And then after doing that 3 or 4 times, the thing is new and it's got its own life. So not that to say that you shouldn't just be bringing new songs to the stage all the time. Like, again, if you're a new band, you're feeling this stuff out. This is a bit of a foreign concept anyways, because it takes time to decide, or not even decide, but to figure out how your style is and to work these nuances out. But bringing these things to rehearsal actually makes it quite easier. Hey guys, this is just like that song, so let's just work it out that way. Let's change up the tempo a bit. These types of nuances, right? So if we're looking at a lot of new hip-hop, new pop, new soul music, and if we actually look back at a lot of the 60s soul, 70s soul music, and some of the pop music of the past, we realize there's a lot of 4-chord songs, a lot of like repeating 4-chord songs in those genres. And we were covering some of that stuff as a group, and we were getting stoked on some of the Ed Sheeran style of writing, and learning some of these kind of more just truly pop styles that were manifesting. And again, you hear it in hip hop and soul because it's just like a sample basically, or a repeating beat. And you realize that a lot of songwriting isn't complex. We're not Train, or we're not Oasis, where we're constructing these insanely well-written, perfectly key-changing tunes that have 8 or 9 or 10 chord changes, and then we're blowing people away with like the intricacies of our songwriting. And that's all fine and dandy, and that's something that you can attain as a group if you want to flex that way and you really want to put the work in. And like, even as a local no one cares or no one knows about you group, you want to be able to get on that stage and people are like, holy shit, these guys wrote like crazy songs. It's like, hey, well, go for it. But I can tell you right now, you can be a very successful group on massive stages off of repeating 4 or 3, sometimes even 2-chord songs. And people at the highest level are still doing this. And it makes for songwriting really simple, makes it really fun. Obviously, you can switch it up in the bridge if you want to. You can get creative in other areas. But in the early times of writing your music, I would say keep it simple. People are not buying your music because it is, perfectly written Oasis level songwriting. People will be buying or streaming your songs or coming to your shows because they're in a point of discovery, or you just happen to be there, or right, they're your friends that are coming to that one show they come to a year, or whatever. But the idea is you can find a lot of success through simplicity, and you don't have to kind of create hurdles in complexity, specifically in songwriting, to create those moments on stage. So to write 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it's going to be, complex songs that are like in that vein of high-level songwriting, hopefully you can find the right melody, hopefully you can find the right hook, hopefully all those elements are there. It's not just like a boring songwriter song, right? If to do all that really well, to rehearse it really well, maybe your drummer plays in like 3 other bands, maybe your bassist plays in like 4 other bands. That's usually the case, especially in bigger centers. To have all that, to ask them to remember it, for them to not have chord sheets on stage, all this kind of stuff, if that's also important to you because you're like a performer, this usually goes hand in hand with writing complex songs. Like, I want you to memorize it, yada, yada. So the burden's very high at that point. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have like 3 or 4 chord repeating songs that are quite fun to play. They're funky, they're soulful, or whatever they are. And you bring that kind of energy, and it's just like, hey boys, it's 1, 4, 6, 5 or whatever, right? In the key of G, let's go. And you just start ripping together, and you're just having fun with it. And you'd believe it or not, you'd be very surprised at how far those songs can take you in the local scene, very far. And then you'd also be surprised that in the highest level scene, guess what? Most songs are still written that way, right? And so it's fun to capture those moments and just to take the burden off. If you want it, less is more, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like I played with the old dogs. They all say less is more, less is more, less is more. And then you know what? Once you get paid a certain amount of money and you can allocate 20, 30, 40 hours a week, a proper sort of professional bend towards your craft, then yeah, diversify, get into the big songs. But we kind of get ahead of ourselves as younger artists or as startups, and sometimes even like caught in the weeds of being a more mature band or whatever. You're like, I should be there by now. I should be holding space for more creativity. And it's like, well, not always. The success or the opportunity doesn't catch up to where we want to be in our reality as like aspiring creatives, as aspiring artists. So it's like, you know what? Cool the jets, get back to basics, bring it simple, make it fun, make it light, make it easy, or make it moody and dark, or whatever that style is supposed to be. But keep it simple, keep it engaging, and let the payoff change the way you approach your creativity. If the money's not there, if the time isn't there, then keep it simple as it comes with your success. Then create those more complex nuances as you get along. And a lot of this at times can really start to manifest in the studio, where more success means probably a little more money and more time in the studio, better producers, better complexities to songs. You can start switching stuff up and preparing for that studio as you get going. But in the initial days of live gigging, I would say truly keep your songs as simple as possible, capturing the essence of what you want to do, keeping the burden light for the players in the band, keeping the burden right for memorization or performance and all that. And I think that'll really pay off for you. This leads me to my next topic, which is the importance of finding a residency. Now, if you're a new band or if you're still aspiring to be creative in the gigging portfolio and you're just kind of that true startup and you're waiting to jump into all types of different venues, a residency might feel or seem like it's a long way off. And it might be. Residencies are usually retained for acts that have some sort of a following or some sort of a reputation in the scene. And we're usually looking at least one night a week in the same venue over the span of a month or longer. So some residencies are short-term, some residencies are long-term. And residencies are very powerful to crafting your songwriting and crafting your stage presence and repeatedly seeing a similar audience week after week and learning how to get them to respond to your music. It was times when I was watching YouTube videos, like listening to comedians talking about their craft or their trade, that I learned the importance, at least from the comedians initially, I learned the importance of matching your trade against a live audience. And you would hear, let's say Dave Chappelle would say it a lot. He's like, I go out and try my new bits or my new sort of Netflix specials or whatever against smaller crowds in New York before it hits the big stage. And he would talk about how he goes incognito and tries out new bits and new, series of jokes or whatever it's going to be, right? Like, I don't know how long these things are, 10, 15 minutes. They try these things out on a smaller crowd and see what the reaction is. For me, playing a residency, we had to have an endorsement with the brewery, and we played the same Wednesday night at the same brewery for roughly 3 years. And we actually requested, they gave us the slowest night of the week, just on the premise of seeing if we could build a night with them. We knew we were doing a great job already throughout other venues of the city. We really didn't have a residency just yet. We had played repeat times in many venues, but like a full-on residency isn't something we had, and we knew we could make a night out of it. So we took a Wednesday once a week, and we got that room pretty busy after about 6 months. And it was in that time of repeatedly playing in that stage, getting to know the locals, seeing new people come in, seeing the room grow, and just trying out new material, that we really started to harness our ability to watch the crowd react to our music, vibe with them, and use that energy to kind of create better songs. It's during those 3 years that we really learned what the archetype of our music was and how to, read crowd reaction and play for the room. And I think that's a very key element to being a successful performing band, is wanting people to enjoy the music and wanting them to react to it. It's not completely like an ego thing or a self-centered, let's say, artistry moment where you think you deserve some sort of reaction because of all the work you put in. Or, I put 50 hours into this song, I should be worth this much. I put 50 hours into this song, people should love it. It's like, you need to earn the right to be heard. You need to earn a reaction from people. And if you're truly writing to have a room pop off to your music, or to feel a sense of emotion, or whatever this reaction is, if you're right, because not every band is like this party band that's geared to getting people, celebrating. Celebration's a key aspect of music, I think, but there's so many other more wide ranges of emotions and feelings that we're trying to evoke from people at times. So whatever the shtick for your band is, it's important to learn how to draw that out of them and not to get all high and mighty just because we put all this work in. The work means nothing until you can earn the right from the crowd. And I know I went a little high level, with this idea of a residency, which for most bands won't come very quickly, but within the residency idea is truly learning to cultivate the longing, but also the ability to please the room in whatever genre you're bringing to it, right? If you're a punk band, you want people to mosh. If you're a metal band, you want people to headbang. Maybe if you're a down-tempo, moody band, you want them to just vibe, right? If you're a party band, you want them to party with you. You want them to drink more. You want them to dance. I don't know. So, but that's the idea. And if you can find a repeat gig in a venue, or your portfolio allows for that, when you see yourself in something similar to a residency or a repeat gig, it can be a very powerful tool to creating that knowledge and that experience. And it should be a goal of your band to find that repeat gig, and if possible, lock into a residency at some point in your time as an early band. The next most powerful mechanism to learning how to move a room outside of playing for a repeat crowd and really trying to match our songwriting and match our vibe to get a response was to learn covers. I remember I didn't really like Ed Sheeran's music when I listened to it on the radio, and it's still pretty poppy to me, and it's not something that I super enjoy all the time in a listening experience. But after learning a bunch of Ed Sheeran songs and covering them, I actually just fell in love with what they sounded like. And now when he releases a new album, I usually vibe to it for a while. Sure, you get bored. It's kind of pop, whatever. But, I really super duper respect his songwriting abilities. And, again, it's not on that like Oasis level intricacy. It's a little more simple. Again, it's in the pop vein. He does have some stuff that's more complex. But when it comes to just like the fluidity of his songs and the flow that he creates and the lyrics and the tempos and the creativity of sounds, I loved every part of it. And so it was in covering music that eventually our band learned how to basically write a party song, right? Like to get a room really toe tapping or to get people up and dancing, there are certain songs that most cover bands will play that can kind of do that. And it really is the song itself. And what we started to do was, learn those songs, watch crowds pop off to them, because essentially we were and are a party band, and we really like to get people celebrating and dancing and sharing memories in a room together. So after learning certain covers that did that and harnessing that ability using that song, we diversified by writing similar originals within that archetype. And now our whole new album is basically like banger listening songs, but also you can just get down to them. They kind of have a duality of poetry and clever lyrics, but also these pop-off dance moments. And I can honestly say that we learned how to do that by covering songs. So one of the things I've always encouraged bands to do over the years is in the midst of like trying your songs on a crowd, like earn that right to be heard by throwing in a few covers in your original set list. Right? You should have a cover probably every third or fourth song. This is a common notion on other YouTube videos and other like quote unquote music professionals that I've listened to, but it's not wrong. A cover, listen, if you can cover Michael Jackson and actually do that well, like you've just earned your right to be heard. People who don't even know what they're hearing, who have no concept for tone or pitch or any of this, they're going to hear Michael Jackson. Even the most like tone deaf person in the room is going to like be like, oh, good for you, you literally just whipped that out. You got a pro in the room and they hear you like bang out Michael Jackson perfectly. It's like, dude, GG, you win. The night is over. You just won the right to be heard. I can guarantee you every original after doing Michael Jackson, regardless of how good the ones before were, is going to have basically be put up on a pedestal, have some pretty serious cred. So that's what's nice about covers. It's like there's these standard professional knowledge or something, not knowledge, sorry, but something that we can relate to that's on a pedestal, that's already up there on the echelon of good music, and someone hears it and they say, oh, you could pull that off, good for you. Or they just hear it and they just love it and then they tune in a little more. And what you might learn, aside from songwriting and aside to how you put things together, you're going to see how the crowd reacts to that. Don't be offended by it. A lot of indie artists hate covers. There's this animosity to cover. It's like, oh, gross, I don't want to touch that. It's like, no. Use it as a tool to learn. Use it as a tool to try things out on a crowd, see where it goes. Cover stuff that's in your vein. It doesn't have to be this silly, like, cover band-esque thing. We cover music the way we would have written it. So actually, we change tempos a lot. We go into, like, half-step stuff. We go into, different breakdowns where the song naturally wouldn't do it. We have a lot of fun with our covers to keep them kind of campy and to keep the crowd on their toes. So you can totally rearrange things, right? You hear it on YouTube all the time, all these remixes of like popular songs. So go for it. Remix songs, have fun with it, but watch how those songs move the room. See how maybe that energy could fit in the way you write your songs. And just learn to appreciate it. What we ended up doing in the long run was, matching our cover sets with our original sets. Like, we have as many cover sets as we do originals. We have a lot of fun with it, and it allowed us to diversify for the type of gig we were booking, performance versus corporate versus party versus whatever, casinos, right? Like live, massive events. You can't just always go all in on originals in those events. You got to, hit people with really good covers for a set or two or more. Christmas parties for companies, they want to hear a lot of covers, and we'd always sneak in originals to all those as well, or kind of do a half original set in the midst of it all, because we earned the right to be heard. And so everything we've ever done has had a bit of a duality to it in regards to covers and originals, and it keeps us fresh. Again, everything's in our style. We remix our covers, so to speak, keep them really like in the vein of type of music that we play. And we've really created a novelty for ourselves in moments of celebration by capturing all aspects of the songwriting and performing material. I just want to take the next minute to put a disclaimer back into here, and you'll hear me do this lots throughout these episodes, and that is that you're obviously going to hear me speaking from a lens of like a pop performance band, right? Maybe that show band quality. And, so you might be listening to this as someone who plays in like punk or metal or something a little more moody, down-tempo, something completely in a more creative vein. And, I got to remind you that Metallica, as a great example, started as a cover band. I believe they put out 2 cover albums, metal cover albums, before popping off on their own. And so I think it's important just to at least learn from the covers that might be out there that are in the similar genre and the similar style that you're looking to grasp, right? Especially if we're making a band, especially if we're early on, this could be a great learning tool for you. So yeah, that's what I kind of want to end that segment with. Now I'd like to end this episode with some pretty hardcore tangibles, some practicals that we can use once we have our music, and what are we going to do with it? How do we get gigging? What are the step-by-step methods in the early part of our band? Or if we're, recalculating or re-envisioning or rediscovering what we're about in the scene. What I have done that worked very well with me was, and I've seen many bands do this as I'm booking at multiple venues and learning how people are sort of breaking into their community, and that is, number one, create a demo. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be likened to like ghost tracks that you would bring into the studio. It has to showcase like the general vibe that you have, the general skill that you have. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly polished. It can be, something done, and just a basement studio. It could be live even. It could be a set of really good YouTube videos that you live recorded with the mix really well. But ultimately, it should be sort of like that quintessential sound that you have, so that you can send that to venues and say, hey, here's why you should book us, And so then what you need to do is you need to look at your community of venues. You need to try to understand or learn what are the entry-level venues. And, there are certain venues where it's going to be, sell tickets or they're really heavy on like the jamming and or open mic scene. And so these are kind of your entry-level venues usually. Usually they'll reserve like a Thursday or a weekday gig to their new bands, and they're willing to take a risk on someone who's just coming into the scene. If we're brand new to a scene, or if we're really trying to dream up, how do I do this? You got to find out where are those entry-level venues and go to the open mic, go to the jams, pay your dues, get to know the people, shake hands with the booking guy, get a demo in his hand through an email or through a conversation, and learn to book out, bring all your friends around, and just get that momentum going. Hey, it's Drew from post-production. I'm snipping into this moment because if you're interested in learning more about the venues and the marketing and the money side of things, where I bring a lot of these thoughts together in a more comprehensive way, I encourage you to keep up with the podcast and to eventually listen to those episodes. I do think it's best to listen to these episodes in succession. That's kind of the way I created them. So up next is the money episode. Definitely get there. But the venue episode and actually the logistics episodes are both really good at bringing together more of these ideas that I'm just speaking to here, as I don't want to go into too much detail because this is mostly about the music. So enjoy, and back to the episode. Here we go. So you've booked one or two venues like this. Once you've showcased that you're a part of the community through maybe the jam or the open mic scene, it's usually a bit of a wave. You'll start to create a wave, and you'll start to be able to leverage where you've played before to get the next gig, And the idea also is to create a following. I'm going to speak to this in an upcoming episode, so I don't want to get too much into that. But the idea is to basically drop your band like a rock into a pool or a river or a lake, and you watch that ripple effect happen. So you want that wave to happen. And a lot of our early local career is about creating that wave and creating a show and retaining what that essence is, and giving the people a reason to show up and to be excited about showing up. So yeah, we'll talk about that in later episodes, but essentially you want to create a wave and a hype train for what you're doing to the best as you can. But yeah, so those are some of the practicals there, like get that demo done, shake hands with people. I talk to a lot of artists at shows, and we're constantly reminiscing. Some of the old boys that I play with are always reminiscing on what it was like for them to start in the scene. And again, when I'm vibing with a multi-band bill and we're all hanging out in the corner of the room, watching our buds play and waiting for that stage moment for us, it's like we often talk about these types of things. Hey man, what's good for you? What did you love about the scene? How did you get going? And 9 times out of 10, people always say, hey, I got going just by getting involved. I just started showing up. I supported other bands. I went to jams, went to open mics. I just hung out. I was an aspiring lead guitarist. I was learning at home. I'm riffing to all these songs online and off these records that I love. And eventually it all just kind of came together. I got an invite to play. I subbed in for this band. I did this kind of thing, met this guy. We pieced it together, formed this band or jumped in this one. Everything worked. The boys were all like-minded and we got going, So these are common stories of people who really care, who want to be involved. And that's what I'm always encouraging new artists or new band members, right? Get involved. Just really start to build community there. It's likened to the first episode where I talked about piecing the right members together. It's about just really having the right frame of mind of, it's not exclusive. It's like, I want to be a part of this. I want to support this. It doesn't matter if your scene or your city is huge or small or whatever's happening. It's like, just get in there. Just become part of the DNA. You never know where it's going to go. You might end up booking places. People might call on you to help out with logistics for an event. You might find out you're running backline for a festival that you help co-create. All these different things. Like, you just never know where it's going to take you. You can have a lot of fun with it and create some play space. So that has to be our mentality going in as a new band, as a startup. It's like, this isn't just like a cash grab. It's not a fame grab. It's like, I want to be part of this. I want to help grow it. I want to be in the midst of it. And so, find out where those venues are. Really get into it. So I will be doing another episode on venues specifically and how we can sort of look at these venues and work with them and what that looks like. But yeah, those practicalities of get the demo, find the right venues, create the wave, use your live performance to generate more live performances, exposure in the early days, along with your social media presence, along with the website, the right photos. These are the most important things, but it really is your live performance. You want to sell yourself on stages over and over and over again, get that wave going where you have that monthly gig starting to pop up or more. And I'm going to talk more about that as we get going. There's things I haven't mentioned yet in this one because I wanted to keep it mostly about the music. But the idea is, we will talk about the logistics. We'll talk about why certain bands are chosen over other bands initially or in the long run. What is your marketing campaign supposed to look like? How important are photos? How important are videos? How important is social media? A good website? All these things. So, but this one is about the music. The music is where you live and die. You live and die in the music. You are music personified. So don't forget that. Find the venues, get on the stage, and you basically want to build out your resume, right? And the resume is building because of the demo that you've created, which might turn into an EP or an album, and the venues that you've been playing at. And just like a regular day job, we're kind of building our resume, so to speak, and then you would provide that to future booking opportunities by your website, socials, EPK, whatever that is. But yeah, keep those moments happening with your music. And that's why I think a demo should be live videos on YouTube. That's the easiest way to do it. It shows exactly what you did in the rehearsal space. One of the things I didn't talk about in this podcast in closing is producing a set. So there are entire books written about how you should piece your set together. And this idea would be similar to how you put an album together, right? As your single is a second or third song, you want to sort of understand the highs and lows of your set and put people up on a high, bring them down on a low, yada, 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 yada. You can buy a book and read all about that. I'm not going to speak to that because for me, that production value hasn't been very meaningful. I'll just put it that way. I think if you're doing a really good job to feel the crowd and to sense what they're vibing, I think the natural production of what your set is will start to manifest. Like I said earlier in this episode. If you're really playing for the room and trying to understand what drives them, and you're trying to understand the type of show you're producing for them naturally, like if you're a party band, you'll start to get that. If you're a down-tempo, moody band, you'll start to get that. If you're a punk band, you'll start to get that. If you're like a jazz quartet, whatever the vibe is, you'll start to learn how to produce your own sets as you are interested in serving the room. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I didn't talk about in this episode, and I just wanted to throw that out there, that I don't want to discredit it. By all means, go buy the book, buy whatever book, listen to whatever lesson you need to learn how to produce your live set. But I would say what's more important is really trying to discover what you're doing well and why the room responds to you, and recreating that night after night. If you're interested in learning more on how to write songs, or to put your set list together, or to really evaluate what your current musical portfolio sounds like to an objective listener, and have someone do an evaluation, and to set a precedence for how to grow in your musical abilities, these are services that I provide regularly in my mentorship program. So if you're interested in learning more about that program and what I have to offer even online, you can go to www.thefrontiersteam.ca. I include a full evaluation of your bands. We can look at assets and creating assets, things like a logo, EPK, help with socials, help with the website, and all of the artist mentorship that would go along with that, including helping with decisions around venues, your booking portfolio, how to write an email, how do we standardize these things, how do we get our money spreadsheets going, shared calendars, all that. And if you're local here to Calgary, Alberta, I love to do that in person as well, and do a lot around the stage, but we can also do it online. So it's a great resource if you're interested. And I like to keep that to 1, 2, or 3 sessions a year, because I want to instill in artists their autonomy and their independence. And I want to basically alleviate the need for a low-level manager, which I think is a waste of money. So yeah, looking forward to the next episode with you. It's all about the money. It's going to be a gooder, so we'll connect there. And in the meantime, feel free to go to www.thefrontiersteam.ca for more information. See you in the next episode.
Voices on the radio. We're just like voices on the radio. I walked in, you didn't hear. We were coming down, and your friends had come around, 'cause my boys from the back are back on track. We're gonna hit that shit on purpose. Y'all gonna have to work us like voices on the radio. Like voices on the radio. We're just like voices on the radio. Yeah, voices on the radio. Grab your girl, come on ladies, grab him too, and put that thing on the line, baby. Show each other a good time, baby. Find a light, no angle could treat you right. We're real and authentic. Girl, you know I'm frantic, just like voices on the radio. Like voices on the radio. We're just like voices on the radio. Yeah, voices on the radio. Oh my God, you look good tonight. Oh my God, we're feeling alright. 'Cause I see your long hair, your beautiful blue eyes, the way you're looking at me. Girl, I wanna take you downtown and I'll set your heart free. And I could take you where you wanna go. And I'll make you mine. And I'll make your face shine. 'Cause we're like voices on the radio. Like voices on the radio. Come on. Voices on the radio. Like voices on the radio. We're just like voices on the radio. Yeah, voices on the radio. Like voices on just like voices on